You find wholeness only through surrender. Wholeness isn't something you achieve. You are whole. You can't get out of wholeness. There's only wholeness is the nature of our reality.
Cue music. Places, everybody places. We're starting in 3, 2.
It's time for Life Interrupted Radio, a show dedicated to practical skills for your mind, body, and soul. We're hoping we'll go in one ear and stay there. Here's the host of the show, Sharon Saylor.
Welcome to the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio, where we look at the rise of autoimmune disorders. The NIH estimates nearly 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder. To put that in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million, and heart disease up to 22 million. You'll be as surprised as I was to find out what autoimmune entails. I brought together top experts that range from doctors, specialists, nutritionists, researchers, and even those recovering from autoimmune to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information about autoimmunity and how to live your life uninterrupted. So let's get started. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio. I'm your host, Sharon Saylor from SharonSaylor.com. And as always, it's my pleasure to be with you at the start of a weekend. Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time is when a new show happens all the time. We're into our 4th year, all because of you guys in my beautiful, beautiful community. If you haven't popped over to Facebook yet, jump over there and like the page Life Interrupted Radio. You'll get great little video clips and little thoughts and things and articles I find that are fascinating to me. All sorts of wonderful things that I find that I hope you find fascinating too. And I'm here, believe it or not, I don't have tea tonight. I have lemon water. I know, that sounds strange. It just sounded good. It's warm, and there was these gorgeous lemons. I'm down in South Florida, and there was these gorgeous lemons, organic lemons on my friend's tree. So here we are with kind of warm lemonade, but I wanted it warm. I don't know. My body just said, you want it warm. So I've got that tonight instead of my chai tea. What are you curled up with tonight? I hope it's just something warm and cozy so you can just listen in and see, because I've got an amazing guest. This is something we haven't talked about a lot. I wanted to bring him on because he is just a recognized international authority on embodiment. Now, I'll tell you what that means. That sounds a little like, what is that word, Sharon? But let me introduce Philip Shepard, because he travels the world teaching the Embodied Present process. It's a unique set of practices he developed to get us out of our heads and reconnected with the profound intelligence of our bodies. How many times do we talk about this? Like, hey guys, check in. What's going on besides your head? Let your body talk to you. We've talked a little bit about what we call the second brain and how the gut plays a huge role in our body as well. But we're going to talk today about this whole idea of radical wholeness. That's his latest book. And any other questions, you know me, we'll go down some rabbit holes. So welcome, Philip. Thanks for being on the Autoimmune Hour.
It's a delight to be here, and I welcome rabbit holes if they come up.
I do too. Sometimes you find the most amazing things when you wander down a rabbit hole. So I watched several of your videos and things. Let's just in a couple of minutes, how did you come up with the idea of the embodied present process? And I was fascinated in your story of being a kind of a science person first, and then coming up with this process. So share a little bit about your story and how you figured this out.
Yeah, it goes way, way back to when I was a teenager, and I'd been accepted to study physics, which is the science part of it. And then there was this theater from Japan, this 600-year-old formalized theater, and I saw, it's called No Theater, N-O-H.
With the masks.
With the masks and the music. And it's not kabuki, which is very extravagant. It's so restrained. And I saw one of these No plays, and I fell to pieces inside at the beauty of it. It was just so moving. So, science or this other mystery. And so I went to England and bought a bicycle I didn't have any money to fly to Japan, but I figured if I aimed the bicycle in the right direction and started pedaling and didn't stop, I'd get there eventually. And
You knew it was an island, didn't you?
I knew it was an island. There was
You were starting on an island.
couple of oceans to negotiate along the way. But I did, I cycled through Europe and the Middle East and India and made it to Japan, cycled through Japan and studied no theater, which introduced me, you mentioned the gut brain. Well, in Japan, the culture honors what they call hara, which is the Japanese word for stomach. But it doesn't translate as stomach. I mean, stomach in our culture is, this area prone to indigestion and weight gain. And, we're ashamed about it or we're vain about it. It goes both ways. But so hara in the Japanese culture means something completely different, which is like where you go to connect with your profoundest truth, where you go when you want to land in yourself. And so that really awakened me, at an early age. I was still a teenager, to this other realm of our intelligence. And I was an actor, but in the Western tradition, never in no theater, but that deep truth is something I've spent my life exploring. And I was as caught in my head as anyone could be. But this dawning within me about this profound connected intelligence that I could visit, and then spend a little longer with and finally come home to for myself.
Wow. I could just feel the emotions and the connection you had with that, because it's still just exuding out of you when you talk about it. It's so awesome. I recently saw an article that showed new photography book with a collection of these masks. And what was so fascinating to me was this master photographer had taken photos of the same mask in several different angles, and you got different emotion from the same mask, depending on the lighting. I was mesmerized by that theater.
It's exquisite. You tilt the mask up and there's a smile. You tilt it down and it reshapes itself into mourning. And it's the same mask. It's not moving, but it's hundreds and hundreds of years of artistry.
Oh, that's fantastic. This idea of being able to go into yourself to connect with the outside play. I just loved it. I loved looking at those. And the book that I saw, as I was looking at it, the photographer didn't put any of his labels on it. It was just the photos. And I was experiencing this wide range of emotions just looking at these photos, which I found so fascinating. But that brings out my inner photographer there as well, because they were absolutely breathtaking. Let's talk a little bit about the process of dropping in. I took a public speaking sort of acting class one time, and I remember this time where they had us prone on the floor, and we focused just on our breathing, but it was way down in the belly below our navel. And what surprised me at that moment, this was years ago, I've since learned some more things about the whole system and why that happened. But what was so surprising is a vast majority of people, as we did this process, and it was in her mind, just getting back in touch with ourselves, had a very emotional experience just by dropping the breath down into that lower core area. So I wouldn't even call it was way past what I would call the stomach.
In the workshops I teach, I do a lot of work with breath. Now, there's the pelvic floor, which is like at the very bottom of the trunk, and there's the thoracic diaphragm. Now, the thoracic diaphragm can move away without the pelvic floor moving. You can hold the pelvic floor in tension and be breathing just fine. But meanwhile, you are crippling the intelligence of the belly by doing that. You're holding it in tension is diminishing its ability to do what it needs to. If the pelvic floor releases to the breath, the thoracic diaphragm has to move with it. And so to bring the attention to the pelvic floor in that way and feel it release to the in-breath and feel it release to the out-breath is to bring an awareness to the breath through the whole of the body. So the whole of the body is invited to release to the in-breath. It's invited to release to the out-breath. And it's such a different quality. I mean, we know, the deep breath is healthy, but we're such a top-down culture that we somehow imagine you have to push the breath down into the body to achieve a deep breath. And to release the pelvic floor, to just let it go to the in-breath, doesn't require muscles. I mean, first of all, it's a release. It's not a muscular effort or contraction. It's a release. And the experience is that of the breath filling the body from the bottom up, which is just so easy and lovely.
I love how you described that, because a couple things came to my mind as you were describing that. The first is how often as a culture, and not just here in the States, I'll say many places I visit, we're stuck in what I call high breathing. It's like the breath doesn't even come close to getting to the pelvic floor. And oftentimes when you say to someone, take a deep breath, the shoulders go up. It's not like they're taking a deep breath into the belly and even getting near the pelvic floor. It's like the shoulders go up. I'm like, well, that's not exactly a deep breath. And I'm curious how much, because I know from my own experience how much I can stay connected when I focus on my breathing, especially down in that part. Does that play into staying present? I mean, sometimes I drift off when I breathe really deep.
There's a whole concatenation of things that I'd love to bring some clarity to. One is, take a deep breath is completely in accord with our cultural relationship to the body. The head knows what a deep breath is, and it makes the body do it. Yes. So take a deep breath is something you would never, ever hear me say in a workshop, because my workshop is getting away from that top-down organizing of the body's responses into its vibrant present intelligence. And then putting the attention on the breath is a crucial first step. But our culture is so self-obsessed, so self-conscious, that we don't quite realize that as long as the attention is on the self, it's not on the present. So for me, I feel the body like a resonator, like a bell. And the present, to rest in the present is to feel the body ring to it as its currents tremble through it. But what we do in our culture, it's like we take the bell and we stuff it full of cotton balls. And it loses its resonance. And then we forget, the present becomes a thing that we should connect to rather than the living medium in which we swim. And so the inner work, like placing the attention on the breath, is the first step of finding the cotton balls and releasing them to bring spaciousness back to the body. And, in my workshop, I go through 4 themes, and the first is breath. As I said, the breath, to allow the breath into the pelvic floor, into the pelvic bowl, restores sensitivity to it. Without the breath, it will remain insensitive. Once you've resensitized the pelvic floor, then you can come to rest there, and rest is the second theme. And what does it mean to take this vigilant supervisory intelligence and allow it to drop down through the body and come to rest on the pelvic floor? And we think in our culture, you can't do that. The brain is what thinks. The whole of the body is what thinks. And our culture, like 6,000 years ago, experienced our thinking in the belly, just as in the Japanese culture with hara, they have that same experience. And then the other 2 themes, once the center of your awareness has come to rest in the pelvic bowl, it's come to rest in a realm of the body's consciousness that understands wholeness. And then you can receive the world into that place. We tend to, speaking of masks, it's like we've got a mask and we're monitoring, mediating the world, but to receive it, to allow it to touch your core is something else. And the fourth theme is integration. As soon as you're allowing the world to touch you there, to live in your core, you are integrating the information that's coming your way.
Wow. Okay. I need to take a quick commercial break. We'll get on that when we get back. So many questions I have, but one thing I want to touch on is the thing that kept coming up for me as I was hearing that is, wow, getting past the conscious brain sphere of vulnerability. That was the one that kept coming up for me. So guys, hang on. I'm going to ask that question when we get back.
Life Interrupted Radio will return after these messages from our sponsors. It's great sponsors like these that keep this show coming to you every week. Be sure and stop by lifeinterruptedradio.com to learn more.
Hi, this is Sharon, and of course you know me from here on the Autoimmune Hour, but maybe you didn't know I'm also an author, mostly nonfiction. But recently I delved into the world of children's fiction with the Pinky Chenille series. If you haven't had a chance to check out Pinky Chenille and the Rainbow Hunters, go over and check it out at pinkychenille.com. That's Pinky, P-I-N-K-Y, Chenille, C-H-E-N-I-L-L-E.com. Thanks. See you there.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Hello, I'm Lisa Berry. Join me every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for Light on Living. A chance to see new, hear different, and feel more as I shine the spotlight on all the ways to lighten the load of life's challenges. Light on Living is your link to that new way you're looking for, that new understanding that will enhance your life, and that positive connection that will support your growth. So join me and you'll gain insight and start to see things in a new way that motivates you.
Om Times Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Om Times, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Listen and imagine. It takes 5 seconds to send a text, and for those 5 seconds, you're driving blind. Life is worth more than a text. Stay alive. Don't text and drive.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, Noise, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio. I'm your host, Sharon Saylor from SharonSaylor.com. And tonight we're here with Philip Shepard, the author of The New Self, New World, Recovering Our Senses from the 21st Century, and his newly published book, Radical Wholeness, The Embodied Present and the Ordinary Grace of Being. I just love that title, by the way. It's awesome. And Philip's been sharing with us his process called the Embodied Present process. And we started out talking about breath and how that was the first step. But one of the questions that came up as you went through the 4 steps, just briefly, we'll get into them more deeply here, guys, in just a minute. But one of the questions was, oh my gosh, there is so much of letting go of the conscious mind and entering into what I kept hearing would be, in my mind, a very vulnerable state. Am I the only one that ever asked that question?
I think it's important to distinguish between safety and security. Our culture is attached to safety and believes in safety and puts in places various modalities and structures to help keep us safe. And that's the tyrant's solution to life, if you look at mythology, and especially Joseph Campbell, who was such a master of it. So there's safety, and if you're alive, you're not safe. I mean, that's just the truth. And so some people try to diminish their aliveness, feeling that will keep them safer. I would rather go to security. So to me, the one security we have, any one of us has, is the security of our being. And that's not in the head. The security of your being is down in the pelvic bowl, when you allow your awareness to descend through the body and rest there in what the body so deeply knows. You come home to a security that is in touch with your wholeness and can feel and process. It's a grounded security. It's not reactive. Anything that's reactive in us is an unintegrated energy. You know, you can have an unintegrated idea about who people are, what should, the way things should be done, and you react when that doesn't happen. You can have an unintegrated emotion that lives in the body. Any unintegrated energy remains reactive, but to bring the center of your awareness down to the pelvic bowl and gather those compartmentalized energies that we segregate and divide and live with within our beings, to bring those back into relationship with that hara intelligence, that intelligence within us that knows and feels and accords with wholeness, as opposed to the intelligence in the head that thrives on analysis, pulling things to pieces. And you know, if you're leaning on an intelligence that pulls things to pieces, you will live in a shattered world.
Wow. I'm mesmerized, everybody. I don't know if you guys are too, but I am absolutely mesmerized right now. I'm not sure what questions I have, Philip, right now. This is so fascinating to me. And the idea of living in a shattered world is, I think, true for a lot of people when they've come upon a chronic or a long-term health condition or a surprise health condition, something that Western medicine hasn't been able to adequately address, is often what I hear. I do have a quick question. How does intuition play into this? I mean, is that the wrong word, or?
No.
Not on video. You guys are I'm getting kind of an eye roll here. So.
Yeah, no, intuition is a great word, but intuition is like a vestige, our true intelligence. So what I mean by that is we've got this erroneous notion that we know everything we know because we've learned it. And so we think human intelligence is a special category that is unlike the intelligence of anything else in the world. But my dog with an upset stomach eats grass, not because she's learned to eat grass or been told to eat grass. The monarch butterfly emerges out of a chrysalis and starts flying to Mexico, not because she's learned the route to Mexico or where that tree is. The world is a field of consciousness and intelligence, and everything in the quantum world, and quantum is thrown around with abandon, but it's such a very, very specific reality that tells us everything is in contact with everything else at all times. And so intuition is what's left of our partnership with the world. And we left that partnership. We used to think hand in hand with the present. It's what kept us secure. It's what fed us before agriculture was discovered. But we left that relationship with the present and retreated up into our heads and took charge of our lives and our agendas and our problems by basically driving ourselves the way a truck driver drives a Mack truck. So living for us is sitting up in the head, taking charge and getting things right and knowing what the right answers are and the right choices are. And meanwhile, to drop down into the body is to not relinquish your choice, but to be informed in that choice by the living continuum to which you belong. The present the present holds within it every tremor of knowledge. It's there, and we've not just lost our ability to tap into that, except, in those instances of intuition, but we have deceived ourselves into thinking that there can't be such a thing.
Wow. We need to take another quick commercial break, guys. That time is flying. I don't know about you, but it's flying for me. One of the questions when we get back, I want to find out, because I definitely want to find out before we run out of time, is these different steps, at least some baby steps into this embodied present process. It's fascinating. We'll be right back with Philip Shepard.
Life Interrupted Radio will return after these messages from our sponsors. It's great sponsors like these that keep this show coming to you every week. Be sure and stop by lifeinterruptedradio.com to learn more.
The best of holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
You accidentally cut your daughter's bangs unevenly. Do you A, line things up a centimeter from her hairline?
Man, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man.
No. Sweatbands are so hot right now. Everyone's wearing them. Like that basketball player and that other basketball player.
B, get spiritual.
Mom, where did all the mirrors go?
A reflection could never capture our true selves.
Huh?
Beauty is within.
C, look on the bright side.
Less time blow drying, more time texting.
Or D, show empathy.
Mom, you really don't have
Ta-da! Twinsies!
I kinda love it. As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information, contact You Gotta Believe at yougattabelieve.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on Om Times Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
Humanity Healing International is a small nonprofit with a big dream. Since 2007, HHI has been working tirelessly to bring help to communities with little or no hope. Our projects are not broad mandates, nor are they overnight solutions, but they bring the reassurance that no one is alone and that someone cares. To learn more, please visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio. I'm your host, Sharon Saylor from SharonSaylor.com. And oh my goodness, I've been mesmerized. I'm kind of out of questions here, but let me reintroduce our guest. And his name is Philip Shepard, and he is the world expert on the embodied present process. It's a unique set of practices that he developed for getting out of our heads and reconnected with the profound intelligence of our body. And I have said all along about an autoimmune condition, the body knows how to heal itself. And I've often railed against this idea that the body is attacking itself. I've never quite believed that when I've been told that, because I'm too much of a believer in the profound intelligence of our body that I've often thought it's, I know our bodies are working to become optimal again, but anyway, that's my little diversion there. Let's talk before we run out of time. Some ways that we started with breathing, and then I went down a rabbit hole for you, but which I love. But let's come back to the 4 steps so everybody has an idea, at least a flavor, a taste of how we can begin to get ourselves down into that pelvic bowl and experience this being present.
Yeah. The breath, as I said, is the first step. And what does it mean to give up the job of breathing? Stop taking charge of the breath, because the body, since the moment you were birthed, has known how to breathe. And we interfere with that and interfere with that. You know, when you're a kid, life is overwhelming. You can't process it. You can't make sense of it. And so you shut down, you compartmentalize, you desensitize. And those segregations or divisions live in the body. And then the decades go past and you're an adult, and you can begin to bring questions to those energies that have been sealed from your being. It's like if you allow that energy to touch your being as a child, it's overwhelming. As an adult, you've found a different security. You've got experience, and you can begin to undo the divisions that compromise what I call a whole body breath. So I would never say there's a right way to breathe, but the principle that informs my work is that the whole of the body should be available to the breath. The breath is like a wave, and the body is fluid. I mean, the body is literally fluid. We're 65% water, and to release the tissues of the body to that breath wave, to feel the breath wave travel the legs to the toes, travel the spine to the top of the head, travel down the arms to the fingertips, to feel that wave through the whole of the body. It's like an inner massage of the tissues that is bringing tensions out of their bound up state and into relationship with each other. You're bringing the body back into a certain coherence that it knows so well. And that coherence can never be achieved in a top-down modality. You find wholeness only through surrender. Wholeness isn't something you achieve. You are whole. You can't get out of wholeness. Wholeness is the nature of our reality. And so it's not like an ideal you have to achieve. It's the reality to which you, bit by bit, learn to surrender. And as you surrender to that wholeness, you find yourself held in the companionship of the world. And that companionship lives through everything. I mean, the door I see behind you has wood in it that probably in its fibers has stored carbon that was breathed out by your ancestors. There is kinship. There's kinship everywhere. But as we contract from the world and we lose our inner spaciousness, we substitute an experience of our reality and replace it with our ideas about reality. And that's what living in the head is about. When we live in our heads, we spend more time thinking about our own thoughts than we do paying attention to the world around us. And it's just an impoverished way of being that is far from benign, because I think the fallout from that is in evidence everywhere around us.
Wow. Now, I want to talk, captured my attention multiple places, but the first place I want to go down another rabbit hole is this idea of our thoughts are mostly about our thoughts and paying attention to the world around us. Can you expand on what you mean? How do we focus externally to pay attention to the world around us?
If we're not focusing externally and paying attention to the world around us, we are self-conscious by definition, conscious of the self. And self-consciousness is a divided state. And it's what we're brought up to be. It's not an individual failing. It's a cultural failing. We think self-consciousness is the way to win, because if we're conscious of the self, we can supervise our actions and make the smart choices. To surrender that supervisory division of the self and open your heart to the felt present, you land here in the simplicity of this living moment, and you realize you are as clearly felt by the world around you as you in turn feel the world. And that, I mean, again, quantum physics, you can't observe a particle without coming into relationship with it, so that you're changing it even as it's changing you.
Right.
And that, the very word consciousness, you think of the etymology of it, the roots it comes from. Con means with, and the science, the second part of it is like science, to know. You go back into the language, and consciousness means, it comes from a Latin verb meaning to be mutually aware. So to be fully conscious is to be in mutual awareness with the world around you, at least as I understand it.
Wow. I love that. I never thought of it that way, but it makes so much sense. I just appreciate that description of it so much. So I want to make sure that we have plenty of time here to, once we're focusing on our breathing, and then you had 3 steps beyond that. Let's just touch lightly on the 4 steps before we
Yeah. So the breath, is a sense of, more a sense of being breathed than a sense of doing. So all the will goes out of it, and the body quickens to the natural breath. And again, it's the sense that the breath is filling the body from the pelvic floor up. What
I find fascinating, though, really quickly, is as you're describing it, and you've described it previously a little bit too, my body is naturally switching into that modality. Yeah. I'm not thinking about it, but I'm hearing you talk about what it is, and the body's going, oh, I know what that is.
Yeah, and as I talk about what it is, it's happening in my body. So you're hearing through my voice, you're hearing that experience.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Sorry for that interruption, but I was so surprised. I'm like, wow, my body's doing that very present, awake breathing. I'm feeling it even in my fingers and toes. It's fascinating.
Oh, lovely. Yeah. And then, as I mentioned, our culture used to experience our thinking in the pelvic bowl, in the belly. And until there's the wakefulness and the sensitivity in the pelvic bowl, you can't drop it. But once that ground is awake and fertile and ready, then you can literally feel the center of your consciousness in the head, feel way, way down in the depths of your being, the landing place on the pelvic floor. And that center of your consciousness can begin to slide down inside the body. So eventually, with patience and love and play, it arrives and comes to rest on the pelvic bowl. And when that happens, you are at rest in a realm of your consciousness that understands everything through wholeness rather than through analysis or division. And you can begin to feel the moment in its wholeness. You can begin to feel the self in its wholeness. We're so uninterested in wholeness in our culture. We don't know what it means to speak from the whole of our being. We're trying to speak from the cleverness of our ideas or from the expectation of wanting to be liked or whatever it might be. But what does it mean to speak from the wholeness of your being or to listen from the wholeness of your being? And once you've come to rest in that realm, then you can begin to receive the world in a way that the world is touching your being. The world is in communion with your being. And there's this struggle people have with being present. And that whole struggle is simplified once you understand that presence and receptivity are equivalent. If I'm fully receptive to you, I'm fully present to. If I'm fully present to a sunset, I'm fully receptive to the sunset. But becoming present is such a static, difficult, somewhat abstract term, but to just receive, to be at rest in your body and to receive that other person, to receive this moment, is to be present to each.
I'm glad you brought that up because that clarified a lot in just that moment there. When you mentioned the sunset, I'm thinking I could reflect back on those times where I was just in awe of the moment and fully enraptured with what was going on at that moment, and each and every second after that. Oh my gosh. We need to take one final quick commercial break. I know time's flying by, guys. But when we get back, we'll find out some more. But hang on, we'll be right back.
Life Interrupted Radio will return after these messages from our sponsors. It's great sponsors like these that keep this show coming to you every week. Be sure and stop by lifeinterruptedradio.com to learn more.
Hi, this is Sharon, and of course you know me from here on the Autoimmune Hour, but maybe you didn't know I'm also an author, mostly nonfiction, but recently I delved into the world of children's fiction with the Pinky Chenille series. If you haven't had a chance to check out Pinky Chenille and the Rainbow Hunters, go over and check it out at pinkychenille.com. That's Pinky, P-I-N-K-Y, Chenille, CHENILLE.com. Thanks. See you there.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Change and growth are part of natural life and also part of your spiritual life. Everyone needs support and guidance, especially during life passages. Upgrade yourself with the Om Times Experts program. With Om Times Experts, you have access to the best intuitive coaches, spiritual teachers, counselors, astrologists, and oracles. Our team was carefully selected so you can trust. Find out more at experts.omtimes.com.
Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Research shows we apologize up to 10 times a day, and most of the time, we say sorry as a response to someone else's mistake. What if we thanked people instead of all that unnecessary apologizing? So instead of saying, sorry, I'm rambling, you say, thank you for listening. Join us at projectforgive.com, a free, non-religious resource on global forgiveness.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio. I'm your host, Sharon Saylor from SharonSaylor.com, and I have just been mesmerized. That's all I can say. Well, my guest tonight is Philip Shepard, and he's recognized as an international authority on embodiment. I know that's a great big word, but he has been bringing it down to the real and has answered so many questions I didn't even know I had. I thought I knew how to be present from my yoga class and things like that. But tonight I have found out that it has a much, much deeper, more profound meaning. And so we just have a few minutes left, Philip. Can you give us some final thoughts, things that can at least begin to put a little more, I'm not even sure, I was going to say wrap it in a nice bow for us, but it's way deeper than that. That's not fair to you. But we just have a few minutes left. What are some final things you would love everyone to know before we run out of time?
We are so idea-driven, and those ideas ultimately stand between us and the present. And even when those ideas are laudable ideas like compassion, I mean, we need to orient our lives. And so I'm going to be compassionate, or I'm going to be truthful, or courageous, or I'm going to find peace of heart. And all of those are wonderful. Each of them carries a risk, because the moment you enter a situation, you say, oh, I should be compassionate here, you're in a divided state. There's the part of you that knows what compassion looks like and feels like, and brings the rest of you along to express it. Every one of those ideals carries the risk of division because of our marriage to idea. Wholeness is so different. When I surrender to my wholeness, I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know where it's going to take me. And unlike compassion or peace of heart, I can't achieve wholeness. I can only surrender to it. I'm in wholeness. If only I could resensitize myself to my reality. But when I do surrender to my wholeness, when I do drop into it, I have peace of heart. I can be no other than compassionate. When I speak from my truth. And so it's so contrary to our culture. Our whole culture stands against wholeness in ways that are so normalized to us, we don't even notice it. But to begin to question that, and the surrender that brings you back to your own life and your own truth in this moment. It's the only journey that really interests me.
Wow. Got probably, I don't know, about 5 or 6 minutes left, and any final other things that you wish that we knew as far as...
There's so much. When you live in your head, you come out of felt relationship and you rely on known relationship. You know who this is. You know what that is. You know what a tree is. You don't need to feel the tree. You know what it is. Yeah, you know what to expect. And we live in known relationship. So we live in relationship to our ideas about the world around us. Felt relationship is something completely different. It moves from category to the specific, from generalized to this moment here and now. And felt relationship is something the body knows. The head doesn't feel. Surgeons can operate on the brain without anesthetic. It doesn't feel. And so that communion with the body, whereby, and it's not a matter of chucking the analytic faculties, it's a matter of bringing them into relationship so they're gifts of perspective and category and discernment can be brought in humility down through the body to come to rest in the pelvic bowl, where they are reborn as sensitivities. And to resensitize to the world around us is to become capable of living more intelligently within it.
Okay, that explained a lot to me, because one of my questions that was been bubbling up every so often is, am I putting aside what I know to just go through with what I feel? And then my conscious mind was going, well, then what do you label it? So there's a real conversation going on.
Yeah. And it's not, so integration is never about excluding. It's never about excluding anything. It's about integrating. And the ailments in our bodies, the pains we feel, the shadows we harbor are, to my mind, in my experience, energies that we've not been able to integrate. They get stuck. And how, then the question is, how do I not get rid of this energy, but how to accept it as you would accept an orphan needing love, an orphan that's been outcast and rejected, how to offer that to your body and welcome it and love it and bring that unintegrated energy, whatever it might be, back home to the pelvic bowl where it can come in contact with your being and join it, lose its independence, that bottled up energy that it harbors, and inform your being even as your being informs it. It joins the whole.
Thank you so much. So a couple of things that came to my mind, everyone, is Dr. David Clark. We've interviewed him a couple of times, as well as Sarah Payton. And some of their interviews will lay some of the groundwork for this as well, talking about things that emotions that get stuck, and things and events that get stuck, and some of their topic. And now Philip Shepherd has just taken me one or more steps deeper into understanding how to move this, how to move what's been stuck. I so appreciate that. That's very profound. We just have a few minutes left, but I want to let everyone know how to find out about you and your workshops and your 2 books. So please tell everyone about your books, where to find them, about your workshops. You're in Australia now, or headed off there soon, or whatever.
In 1 week. Yeah. I'd love people to look at my website, because there are interviews and videos, but there's also a set of 8 exercises that can be downloaded. And these, I recorded these in a studio, and they're just simple audio exercises that take people through the journey from the head down to the pelvic bowl. They recognize the body's energy and show you how to let that settle. So if you're on the website, you can also see there's a list of workshops, and there's nothing like having someone in a workshop and experiencing the work in their bodies. So much of the workshop is about acquiring choice, because we live with patterns that we don't even know are there, because we're culturally normalized to them. And when you don't even know it's there, how you have no choice. It's unaccountable. So to become aware of those patterns living within your neurology is already to begin to change them. And I just love that. And there are also teachers trainings where I take a group of people for a year, and we get together for 3 5-day periods. And over the course of the year, they learn how to bring the work into their bodies and how to model it and how to help me create a new way of being. And then there are the books. There's my first book, New Self, New World, and my second book, Radical Wholeness. And both books have exercises. The newer book, Radical Wholeness, is it was my intention, and I've heard from people that it was fulfilled. It was my intention to make it an easier read. It's also, both books have exercises in them. So you can read the book, and there's a practice, a specific embodied practice that's like a template that allows you to explore.
Oh, fantastic. Everyone, it's Philip Shepherd. I'll have the spelling out there, but his last name is Sheppherd. I know you can spell Shepherd multiple ways. So
many ways. Philip with 1 L, because you can spell that 2 ways.
Right. Okay. Philip with 1 L and Shepherd with 1 P and 2 E's. So anyway, I'll have it up on the website at lifeinterruptedradio.com, everyone. So you can be sure and just click on that, because I know a lot of you like to listen to the podcast while you're driving or doing other things. And I know tonight was probably a little hard because I kept getting mesmerized. So thank you so much, Philip. This has just been awesome. We're going to have you back. Give us a little time to go to your website, download those exercises, and experience it for ourselves. Awesome. Everyone, please join me again next Friday night for another Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And if you haven't had a chance yet, run over to lifeinterruptedradio.com and be sure and sign up to get all the transcripts. There's 160 plus transcripts up there. So if anything that Philip told you tonight, gosh, I'm not exactly sure where he said it, you could just download the transcript and have it all right there for you as well. So it's awesome to get it that way. And as always, join me over at Facebook, Life Interrupted Radio as well. Twitter is at Autoimmune Hour, so please join me there. And have a great week, whatever your adventures. Join me here next week. And as always, enjoy.
The information provided on lifeinterruptedradio.com is for educational purposes only. What you hear, read, and see on Life Interrupted Radio is based on experience only. The information presented here should never be used for any legal, diagnostic, or treatment purposes. Always seek sound legal, medical, and or professional advice regarding any problems, conditions, and any of the recommendations you see, hear, or read here on Life Interrupted Radio. You've been listening to Life Interrupted Radio. To learn more, listen to other shows, and gain free resources that can help empower your life, be sure to stop by lifeinterruptedradio.com. This episode is brought to you by mindfulnessinactionbook.com. To get your free 4-minute guided meditation to relax, refresh, and renew in just 4 minutes, and who doesn't have 4 minutes? Stop by mindfulnessinactionbook.com now. This guided meditation is in handy MP3 format, so you can use it anywhere, anytime. Download it now at mindfulnessinactionbook.com.
Do you want to be a better leader? Have better relationships? Become more self-aware? Be a better communicator? Hi, I'm Sharon Saylor, best-selling author, professional speaker, and executive coach. And my life passion is empowering professionals to be the best that they can be. After years of working with professionals, I've discovered the 7 things nobody is telling you that can cost you your clients, sales, and even your career. And I want to give it to you free. You've heard my show, you know my passion, and maybe we'll be working together sooner rather than later. So go grab this ebook now to find out the 7 things that's costing you big time over at SharonSaylor.com/radio gift.